The webinar will be a combination of presentation and live demonstration. And in about 45 minutes, we will wrap up. And later today, you will all receive an email with a link to the webinar, so you have the option to catch up in case you should have missed some of it. I hope you will enjoy the content. And now I pass the word over to Bjarne. Here you go, Bjarne.
Thank you, Marianne, and welcome to all. As Marianne said, my name is Bjarne Steen Nielsen, and I'm a consulting manager, and I'm also a ServiceNow architect, and have had the privilege of creating implementations for customers on this exact topic that I'm going to talk you through today. Right, let's kick it off. First of all, a short agenda, just to let you know what we're going to go through today. First of all, this introduction, and then we're going to look at some of the challenges that we see today in terms of having effective onboarding in enterprises, both in small enterprises, but especially in larger enterprises where a huge number of stakeholders are involved, and where the employee that are to be onboarded can sort of be the hostage in these processes that need to take place. After that, I'm going to look at an approach of how to do this effectively using ServiceNow, and going to go through a demo of how this looks in the system, both when we see it as an employee that are about to be onboarded, about to be hired, and also as the hiring manager and as the HR specialist that handles the sort of day-to-day work on the tasks that are to be carried out in the system. After this, we'll take a short look at how we can improve this process ongoing. What are the benefits of having these processes put into ServiceNow in terms of reporting and improving the steps based on the feedback that we can get both from the employee or any other stakeholders and from the data that we are collecting throughout this process. Finally, some key takeaways from today, my most important points on what we're going to go through, and in the end, a short Q&A where we can take in questions. Perhaps we can have time to answer some of them. Otherwise, you will get a minute with these questions and answers afterwards.
Maybe we should just mention that at the bottom of your screens there is a Q&A button, and you can ask your questions there, and we will answer those we can during the call, and otherwise we will follow up afterwards to make sure we get all questions answered. Yeah, definitely. So if you have the questions during this presentation, please ask them right away so we get them in, and Marianne will make sure that they will be noted, and we'll find out which of them we can answer today and which we'll have to get back on after this. Okay, so first of all, first topic, what are the challenges to effective onboarding today? As it is with onboarding, so we see the same thing across the sort of environment that we are using IT to handle the day-to-day business. Coming from several legacy systems, we have sort of disconnected processes that need to connect. And the employees that we have today are not used to these sort of old-fashioned ways of working. So in order to align all these processes, different systems to the business priorities, we need to get them into one system where we can have a better overview of what's going on when this is carried out. Why is onboarding important? Well, I think everyone of us have tried, either seen or experienced by ourselves, how it can be to start in a new business. There are a lot of things that needs to be in place. There are a lot of system access that needs to be in place. A lot of payroll information needs to be filed and entered into the correct system. So if you start up in a new position and you need to start your work as soon as possible,
if these things are not in place in due time, this will severely impact your ability to start your work. This is a frustration for the employee. It is, of course, also a frustration for the enterprise, because an employee not able to carry out his work means that we have non-productive people sitting around. We have a business that is not running as well as it could be. So for us to handle this, we need to ensure that coordination exists between all these different tasks that need to be carried out, and coordination that needs to happen between all these elements. This can be challenging, of course, because there are a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people involved in new hires. It could be simple hires in a location close to where the manager is sitting, but we still have facilities that need to be involved. You need the desk, you need to have IT involved, you need to have access to the correct system, you need to have a PC, you might need to have a desk for your own, you might need to just be based remotely, but have VPN, etc. And even more complex, we can have people that are stationed in other locations, way from where we are sitting in our headquarters, perhaps. And then we have a lot of more legal security issues, visas, relocation, things that needs to happen. And all these needs to be looked at. If we don't have this sort of good way of coordinating individually, and it's easy to forget if you need to follow a checklist that's generic. You need to make decision as an HR specialist or as a manager. In each case, do I need to file this paper? Do I need to fill out this form in this case, if you don't have some logic behind this? So this lack of visibility means that you're bound to have things that get stuck along the way, things that are forgotten. So everything seems to go fine, but when the employee gets to the point where he starts, then something is missing in terms of an access. That means that the exact system that he's about to use is not available, or his key card is not working, so he can't get into the office, etc. And we might not have one single place to look at where are all these tasks in their process at that time. So how do we go about making this a more transparent and streamlined experience for the employee using ServiceNow? First of all, it's important that we are aware of the priorities of the business. So when we look at the onboarding, we need to identify all the elements that are crucial to the experience when the employee starts. What's important for the employee to start working, what is important for the business to know about the employee, what is important to have in place, and how do we create also a good experience for the user, because a user that is happy is more productive and are less put back by obstacles and takes on challenges in a better way. So if we can provide a streamlined experience where things are happening ahead of time, so we are proactive instead of reacting to things that are missing. You can see that things are taken care of. They have thought this through when I start. Then we create a better experience for the employee starting. So this needs a lot of planning, but when this is planned and the tasks are set in motion in due time, we can easily reduce this time it takes from the actual time the employee steps into the office at the first time to when he is actually delivering his ordinary work in a timely manner. So in ServiceNow, how do we do this? ServiceNow has created this enterprise onboarding and transitions module, which enabled us to split this entire onboarding process up in a set of activities that we can set in time, starting from the pre-hire phase, where we need to collect information from the employee. This could be a need to do perhaps a background check references at former employees. We could need some further information from the employee in terms of it could be emergency contacts, it could be his correct address that needs to be filed in order to create the correct contract. So before we can even hire him, we might have some tasks that we need to carry out. And once that pre-hire phase is done, we can move to the pre-boarding phase. We now have a signed contract. We know he's going to start. We actually also know when he's going to start, and we can start designing or initiating the tasks that needs to be carried out. Now we can start getting visas. We can start completing the profile information in the systems that we are using, etc. Some of these tasks might only be applicable for certain people. So if I'm based in, say, Copenhagen, there might be a certain amount of tasks that needs to be carried out in that facility department, but that might be different if I'm based in Stockholm. So in these activity sets, we can define audiences, so we make sure that without us having to make decisions along the way, we can, based on which office we are assigned to, which country we're working in, or which department we are to be working in, we can make decisions in terms of deciding which tasks are relevant and which parameters are necessary to get into the system. Once the pre-boarding phase is done, typically we start the things that need to happen on the day that the person starts. Make sure we have a welcome committee ready. We can make sure that the phone is set up, voicemail, etc. And then, just as important as the starting things, then the follow-up tasks. How do we ensure that the complete training is done at the time we need? How do we ensure that we actually collect feedback from the employee, from the manager, on how this process has worked, so that we can improve on this process continuously? And this exact thing of setting in motion scheduled tasks even after the person has started can be some of the things that are very easy wins in terms of employee satisfaction afterwards. So what we're seeing here is the very nice graphical view that ServiceNow presents, and that is key to maintaining this set of activities in an easy way. We need to be able, as an HR administrator and HR manager, to see exactly how does this look. And through this, we are able to send tasks to every department or function in the enterprise. So we can both create HR tasks, we can create tasks for IT, we can create tasks for facility, or whatever needs to be done in terms of serving this employee in his coming work. And this provides a good overview of that. In order to make this as user-friendly as possible, we have a number of tools. First of all, we have, and that's used more and more, we have the option of distributing an onboarding app to the employee even before he is hired. And this is key to the process. We want to get the user, the coming employee, into the system as soon as we know we might need to hire him, because that's the only way we can improve the entire process in this. And that's also a way for us to get him to start using the systems that he or she is about to use when they start, even before they get into the office. So they get used to using ServiceNow, and they can see what's going on in terms of onboarding them in a visual way. They can communicate with HR through this, and they can be made aware of tasks that we need them to fill out. So we don't have to send them emails asking for an account number for payroll. We don't need to send an attachment through an email to get an NDA signed that they then need to print out and sign and scan and return. All this can be done through the onboarding app that ServiceNow has made available. It's very scaled down. It's easy to use. You see the screenshot from the onboarding app on the left side. And there's also the regular ServiceNow app that the manager, for instance, can use, because we also have tasks for the manager that he needs to fill out. He needs to pick, for instance, the equipment that this new employee needs to get. Which PC is he going to get? Who is going to be his buddy on his first day? All this can be automated and then pushed to the employee and the manager through these apps. But we also have the option, and that's what I'm going to show you in the demo, of doing it through the service portal that we are using in ServiceNow, which are the sort of the usual way when you are in your job, where you can order new equipment, order new stuff, ask questions to IT, search in knowledge base, etc. You can also use this as both a new employee and as a manager. Both channels are available for it. All right. So now over to some practical things instead of the too many slides. I'm going to do a short demo just to show you how these tasks are created, assigned to the correct people, how the process is moving forward as these tasks are completed by either the employee, the manager, or the HR specialists. We're going to use 3 different personas in this. We have a manager who's about to hire. He's called Mark. A new employee called Eric, and then an HR specialist called Steven that's going to handle the back-end task handling that's going to happen. Both Mark, the manager, and Eric are going to use the service portal to see the tasks that are assigned to them. They could also use the app for ServiceNow, but for ease of presentation, I'm going to use the service portal for it in this case. Right, so I'm going to switch here over to a browser. Right, so I'm now going to log into the service portal with Mark. And well enough, he manages to log in. I'm just going to navigate to the service portal for him. So most managers may not use the ServiceNow backend for day-to-day work. So they would be using the portal just as most of the employees use on a regular basis. So if he's going to initiate an onboarding, he would search for that particular item in the service portal. So I could search for onboarding, see if anything pops up. And fortunately enough, it does. New hire onboarding is what we want to do as Mark. So now I can make sure that I collect the information. Mark has a new guy he wants to hire. He has conducted the interviews, and he's pretty sure that this is the real thing. So let's see, we have Eric. He's called employee. Last name, Eric. Something. All right. Then I need to put in when is he going to start. In this case, let's have him start on June 1st. That was May 1st. Let's go down here. So we have ample time. I'm going to choose a title for him. Let's make him a security analyst. I have to select an employment type. So also based on this, there could be different ways of initiating this employment in the systems, if they are part-time, full-time, or just a contingent or contractor. But for this, I'll choose full-time employee. I'll have him join Mark's department of excessive recruitment. Let's have him based in the office. And finally, I'll choose where to station him. In this case, let's choose Copenhagen. So based on these inputs, I can now initiate the onboarding process. So I'll just submit this case as the manager. Let's see what happens. So a lot of cases are now created, and I'm taking as manager to the case that has been created for this, which contains all the tasks that needs to be carried out. So I can see them. I can see them based on phase. So in this first phase, the pre-hire phase, I can see that these different tasks are created. Some of them are for HR. Some of them are for Eric, our new employee. He needs to sign an intellectual property agreement, IT agreement, facility access. He needs to get a key card, for instance, and non-disclosure agreement needs to be filled out. So I can see what is created and who has tasks in this. As a manager, I don't have any task right now. So now, what happens then is that Eric is created in ServiceNow automatically with an account. So he can log in. He is then sent this information on an email with directions on either to log in into the portal or on how to install the onboarding app and log in to the system through that. So I'm just going to, for ease of demonstration, just reset Eric's passwords. It's randomly generated, so it just needs to be something easy. Right. In a second. Right, that's all right. So let's take another browser and have Eric, who has been assigned this new username and a new password. Let's see if he can log in. He couldn't. Let's see. If I pressed it correctly. So Eric. Like that. So Eric has logged in. We can easily see, welcome Eric, your start date is quickly approaching. In 30 days, I'm about to start having my first day. And I can also see that I have 4 tasks that are waiting for me. So if I click into those, and this is where the app makes a lot of sense, because that would be the only thing in the onboarding app that he's presented with. He wouldn't see the regular service portal. But here I can see what I have to do in order to process the pre-hire phase of this onboarding. I need to sign an IT agreement. I can do that either by just typing my full name as confirmation. I can also draw a signature. So if this is Eric's signature, I can just accept in here. So we don't have to print, scan, and sign these agreements instead. So that's the first one done. I also need to sign the IP agreement. Let's do that the same way. Almost the same signature. 2 left. We have a facility agreement. Let's quickly sign that one too. And finally, the NDA. Let's have some scribbles down here and accept that again. So an easy way with no communication going back and forth. Eric can still ask questions around these. For instance, if he has questions for the non-disclosure agreement, he can post those questions in the case, and they go to the HR specialist, and they can answer any thing that then can be handled right away, so we don't have anything holding this process back. So now Eric has done his work. He has no more to-dos. So let's just refresh this page where we are on Mark. So Mark, who is hiring, can now see that a lot of task has gone away. So we are in a good state on this. The final persona we had was our HR specialist, who is Steven Saitis. And I'm now in the back end of ServiceNow, for those of you who haven't seen that before. So I, in my daily work as Steven, as an HR specialist, handle these different events and tasks that come into the system. Just refresh to see if anything new and interesting has happened since I last was here. Of course, let's just do it another way. Right here. So here's Steven. Right, and here we can see that we have a new case on the list. We have a new hire onboarding with Eric on the Copenhagen location. So if I go into that, this is the view that the HR specialist is seeing. So he as well can see the phases that we need to go through, the pre-hire, the pre-boarding, day 1, week 1, day 30, elements of it. And he can see every detail of it. So he has everything available to him. He can see the tasks that are in progress down here. We can see that we have already created an account that is done automatically. So that is sent to Eric. We have a task that is assigned to Steven to do a background check. And we have this new hire documentation, which is the task that handles all those things that we need to collect information, signed agreements, etc. And we can see that the only tasks that are still in progress here is the NDA. There might be some filing left to do for Steven when Eric has signed this agreement. So let's close this one, saying this is done. Everything is as it should be. Right. So now this is closed. Everything is good. We have all the information. So I'm going to try to close this and update it. And as we can see, we are now awaiting acceptance on this. The reason is that we would like our Eric to confirm that everything has been to his liking. He's been able to ask the question about the documentation that he needs. So if he accepts that, we can move on. So Eric accepts, and let's go back to see what happens in the case itself. And now it's closed. And the only thing left for Steven to do is take a look here at the background check. And all this happens without Eric having to be involved in this, of course. So Eric can look at this. He can take this reference call with an employee. Let's start work on this case. And let's just follow this checklists. So for all these tasks that we create internally, we can create checklists so we make sure that the HR specialists are following the same steps along the way. And let's close this complete. So everything is good. And go back. All right. So we now finished all the pre-hire tasks, and automatically after that, the next phase is started, because now we know that this employee is going to start. Everything was completed without issues, and we can start the pre-boarding phase. So let's look at our two persons here. Let's look at Eric. So Eric has now gotten some new tasks for this, something he might as well do before he starts. We can set due date on these, so we can make sure that they are inputted and filled out in due time before he starts. And this also means that we can follow up if they are not filled out. So we don't have to wait until he starts to find out that something was missing or he didn't file it as he was supposed to. We can actually have the system notify him automatically if he's missing something. So he now just needs to fill out these extra information. Where do you actually live, Eric? We can have different types of tasks. We can also have tasks for him to view an onboarding video explaining how the alarm system works, or whatever we need to do to make sure that that he has a comfortable first day. And there might also be things that he needs to file now that we know he's going to start. For instance, account number for payroll, so we know how to pay out his salary. And as well, we have our Mark, who is the manager. Let's just try to refresh this page to see what goes on here. And here also we can see that it's moved to the pre-boarding phase. And some new tasks are created for Mark. For instance, selecting equipment, selecting which cloud accounts he might need access to. It could also be access to specific systems that we need to do. So Mark can start selecting the equipment in due time so it can be ordered, prepared, and be ready for Eric on the day that he starts. So we can make it available as a choice. So would you want a PC, a MacBook, or whatever? Let's say he wants a PC. We can make a decision on perhaps Eric do not want to have a separate screen. So on the next page, this is the default, but I could choose, say, okay, Eric doesn't need a screen, so I'll deselect this one, move on, and then I'll order it. I can present prices for the manager so he knows what he's going to be charged for this. And I could even put in some special instructions or another delivery address for this. But otherwise, I'll just check it out. Just as a normal order on a service portal for equipment, I can do it this way. And then this is ordered. So once all these are filled out, don't have time to go through every one of them, but as Eric and his boss, Mark, fills all these out, then eventually, when we are on as Stephen, we will see in this case moving forward, and then more and more cases are created and can be viewed inside the system. And we have the ability to report on every one of this. So how long does it take, etc. Right. So that's a short intro of how it would look in ServiceNow. The important part was actually what we saw as Eric. So you have an easy interface into what you need to know, what you need to do, what is expected of you, and we can present you with information in very due time, so you can make yourself feeling more comfortable on the day that you start. You're not starting from scratch, and we can be more certain than that the correct accesses and the correct equipment that you have wished for instance, are delivered to you, and everything is working as it should.
Bjarne, we have a few questions, so
Yeah.
I think it might be a good time now.
Yeah.
The first question is, so when you create a user, or the employee that is about to start, will that user entity be joined with the actual user when he's created in the AD later?
Yes, this is the short answer. Let me just show you. I'll just go into the system administrator. I'll just show you how the process looks in the life cycle event, the whole process. So the AD creation is done later, ideally via an integration. Of course, we could integrate a lot of the things that we have collected information, for instance, account number for the payroll system or etc. The same thing goes with AD. So I'll just look at how the entire new hire onboarding looks if I'm administering it. Looking at the activity sets, this was the slide that you saw. So here I can see what's happening in pre-hire, what's happening in pre-boarding. So in pre-hire, we have the creation of the account only in ServiceNow. So an HR profile and a user in ServiceNow are created, but nothing else, because we might terminate this one before he moved from pre-hire to pre-boarding based on background check, for instance. And then we just need to delete him in ServiceNow. But if he moves on, if we look further down into the pre-boarding lists, then we can have automation create the user in AD based on the information that we have in ServiceNow. So that's where we create the link between those two.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is one other question, which is about the employee contract.
Yeah.
So before you onboard the employee, where is the contract and where does the employee sign? How does that work in practice?
Yeah, that depends on how you use your systems, because most oftenly you have the recruitment system is a different system than ServiceNow. So this is handling onboarding, not recruitment. And the task of handling the contract is usually a part of the recruitment system. It could also be, if you choose to do it, a document in ServiceNow, just as we saw on the NDA or the facility management paper. It could be that, but most often we see it as a part of the recruitment system that creates that. So that is actually handled separately from this. But it could be a part of it if you so choose.
Okay, thank you. Those were the questions that came in on the Q&A. And
Yep.
If anyone else has questions, just feel free to put them in. And I guess, Bjarne, you will go back to the presentation now.
That's correct. All right, so that's the demo. So my next bullet point is the road toward excellence. By that, I mean, how do we improve this process? And that becomes a lot easier when we have this one system of record. Everything is in here. Also, the task that we send to someone. We don't send out emails to facility. We don't send emails out to IT. Everything is in the same system, so we can report across all these processes. And there are a number of KPIs we can use for this. Here are a few examples. We can measure based on surveys the satisfaction on the user's part, on the access to new systems and technology when he starts. Something that we can, of course, look at are the employee retention rate. Does the fact that we put all these things into ServiceNow, does that improve the retention rate that we had before? If not, what can we do to improve it? And a very easy winning point is new hire average request in first month, as we see in the middle of this. So if the new employee makes few requests for answer to questions or for access or post questions, etc., that means that we have done a good job in making sure those have been taken care of earlier in the process proactively, instead of waiting for the user to have that question. So if the users post those questions post start, then we might as well collect that information and make that available either as knowledge articles or as something that is sent to them as a task, etc. So this provides, even without us making questions to the new user or the manager afterwards in the survey, even from the data that we have in the system, we are able to make progress. Two short slides, not going to spend too much time on this, is just for you as a reference to see what is actually happening, what is the user asking for in the different phases of this typically, and how do we then go about pushing those into ServiceNow. So as we see here, the job offer, the recruitment is handling pre-ServiceNow, everything that goes on from the start of pre-boarding to the employee feeling at home is what is being handled inside ServiceNow. And here are some examples of what the user could ask for or have the need to have carried out. So this is what we are enhancing with ServiceNow. We are doing it by targeting. So that's very important. We don't send everything to everyone. We make sure that we define the audience for everything that we do, so that people that needs relocation assistance get that, etc., without having to make decisions on the creation of every task. We can have omni-channel support. We can use chat. We can use the portal. We can use the app, etc. So it's easy for the users to help themselves. Everything goes around making it a more consumer-like experience for the user, so more human-centered. It doesn't matter how complex it is in the back end for the HR specialist. In theory, of course, we want to make it as simple as possible, but the important person in this scenario is the employee that is about to start. Few thoughts on the maturity model, because everything I've said hopefully makes sense, at least I hope so. But to engage on this journey, taking everything at once is bound to fail. So when starting this journey about putting things into ServiceNow, organizing it into sequences of activities that needs to carry out, it's very important to find out where do we start. Start by using the catalog in ServiceNow to streamline the ordering and the fulfillment of forms, etc., and then work your way up as the organization matures and the users get acquainted with the different platforms that you're using, and you get some feedback from the first employees that start to use, for instance, the onboarding app. What are the difficulties that prevents them from getting the full advantage of it? Right, that was the wrong way. So finally, just some bullets with the key takeaways, just to summarize. Important thing is get the new employees into the systems right away. That makes sure for us that we get the data into the system even before they start, so we can improve on every aspect of the onboarding. Make sure to use a consumer-like approach, both in communication and in the user experience on portal, apps, etc., so the user will feel at home right away. We can use automation, both to start tasks in good time, so there's no need to wait. If we know a due date, then let's start the task in well time before that. And use the automation also to ensure consistency and that you target content, so you only provide people with choices and forms, etc., that they actually need to fill out. Also improve continuously. Ask for feedback. Look at the data you have in the system. That becomes easier and easier as you go along, as more and more employees get into the system. You have more data to learn from. And with ServiceNow as a good example, make sure you use one system of record, one tool for it, so you don't have to integrate between systems and between processes, between departments, have everyone working in the same tool. And finally, as we saw on the last slide, make sure you take a phased approach as your maturity grows, instead of biting over everything at once. All right.
Bjarne,
That
there
was
is one final
me.
question. I
Yeah.
think we can do this quickly. So
Yeah.
one question is, what licenses are involved?
Yeah, licenses are a separate thing. I think we should send out either some information or a short call on licenses, because it would, I think we could use half an hour on licensing if we want to, but I'm sure we shouldn't. But the short answer is it's based on HR and the employee lifecycle module that we are using is part of some of the license models that are there, or something you need to buy separately. But the details are a separate topic.
Okay, thank you, Bjarne.